Hey guys, we're live and we're a little bit late this morning because the software decided, I guess this was something that happened last week. The software decided to do some kind of update and reconfiguration with YouTube, and I don't know, it's kind of weird. I had to go back in there, delete the channel on the software and reconfigure everything. So that's just the way it goes sometimes, and I don't know, it's the way it is. All right, so let me see here. We're starting a brand new drawing, and I'm going to pull everything up so I can see what we're doing here. There we go. So we looks like from the stats that we are live both on YouTube and Facebook. So if you're able to join on either one of those and you get kicked off or something like that, just know you can go to the other platform and catch the live stream there. So thanks for joining today if you're just now joining. So I've got this portrait that I want to work on today, and let's see. You're not going to be able to see it a whole lot unless I move. Let me move my screen over so that you can see it better. It may work. Let me see. Okay. That's probably better. All right, let me see. All right. Hi, how are you? So we've already got someone over there on YouTube Live. I'm good. I'm not sure how to pronounce your name, but thanks for joining over there on YouTube Live. Okay. So I wanted to show you how we will just go through the setup process and lay this out on the new drawing surface. So let me see if I can change this over. There we go. Okay.
This is beautiful.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, yeah, it should be a lot of fun to draw. So I'm drawing on sanded paper. I'm going to use colored pencils, and I am going to, so this is a sanded paper called LuxArchival. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with some water-soluble pencils at first. I'm going to use Inktense Bark. I may or may not use water. I'm not sure yet. I'm going to start off with a really dark pencil, and if I do use water, I'll have to be a little careful about some of the shadow areas. So I want to look at this first, and I want to think about all the different elements in here and decide what I want to capture and what I don't want to capture. So, all right, thanks Pat for joining over here. You're welcome for the review. Pat's over on YouTube Live. Okay, so what I will do, see, I've got some dark elements right in here where those shadows are. Got some dark elements right here, some over here. Obviously the eyes are very dark. We've got some dark brown eyes, some shadows over there, and in the mouth area as well. So, okay, the neck's a little bit darker. There's some shadows way back at the very back over there. So those are my darkest areas. And then I've got some mid-range areas, like even the nostrils are within a mid-range. Some kind of funky highlights going on here that I may or may not want to capture. This little highlight right here, and right here on the chin, I may choose to not capture that. The light source is coming from above, obviously, but it's also over to the right over here. And I've got some clear highlights, like right here is one. Maybe hard to see that on camera right now. Right in here, obviously, is one. Over in here and here. But I've got a little bit of light reflection over here. But I don't over here, only because of the way the light is positioned. What I could do is I could minimize this and not show it at all, as well as this area right here where that shadow is. Or I could do it exactly the way it's depicted here, only on one side of the face. Or I could change it up and I could put the highlight over here underneath that. And I could do the same thing down here. It would also be convincing, though, if I left this out, these two little glimpses of light hitting the upper mouth and the chin area. Nick Edgar, thanks for joining over here. That's your new favorite paper, huh? You've done some work on it. It's pretty impressive. I really love that. So thanks for joining over there on Facebook Live. Okay, and then, I've got a lot of shadows going on, actually, and highlights as I start to look at it a little bit more. So what I may choose to do then is go ahead and depict those. And I've got this strong little real sharp highlight on the glasses, both those areas, about 3 or 4 areas right there. Okay, so we want to look at the shape of the face. I've got this object, the glasses, that is resting on top of my subject and is more or less a distraction to me when I start processing through this. And so I want to be able to try to block it out for a little bit and focus really on the features as I start to place those. All right. So this sort of middle brown color is, it's a Van Dyke brown. I think what I'll do is I'll try to choose something a little lighter even at the beginning. Raw umber, that looks good. And what we'll do is we'll just kind of feel this out a little bit. There is a rotation or a little tilt in the head as well. Okay, the age of the child, she's pretty young. And so some of the features are more focused in this lower area of the head. And so we got to keep that in mind as well. All right. Also, my reference is larger than my drawing surface over here. Now, some of this can be deceiving as well. Some of the hair is over here. It's reflecting light, so it's very bright. But then it also is creating a shadow on the forehead, which helps to depict some of the curvature of the forehead, which is great. Okay. So because of that tilt in the head, that nose is not lined up horizontally to the edge of the paper, talking about the short edge, and down here the chin will be the same way, the eyes same way, forehead, and as we go up and look for those parallel areas, these ears come down just a little bit further than the base of the nose there. Okay, so I have to make a decision on where I want to start placing some of it. All right, so let me do this. I want to put this over here. I want that chin in there somewhere. I'm not sure where. That's a little bit dark. I'm going to actually choose a lighter pencil than that. So I can get rid of that. I don't really want something quite that dark. That's a little too dark. I need a little more tape on here too. I'll put tape on this bottom side here. Keep everything in place. All right. So, restate that line just a little bit. Yeah, I think I want my chin right in that area. Now, I'm not worried at this point about the curvature or what it looks like or anything like that. That'll all come later. It's way outside of my concern at this point. I don't even need to worry about that or think about it. Actually, if I do think about it, it can become distracting to me. Okay. This is in here somewhere. I want to look at these angles. Pay attention to these angles. So I'm looking at this negative shape over here. It's in there somewhere. The cheek's in there somewhere. I don't care really yet where that is, how wide it is, or anything like that. I'm getting something on the paper to work with. Okay. Now if I want to go all the way out there, like I have on my reference, then I may want to, I will probably have to print another version if I want to go this size with as far as the width. So I still could bring this out more, and then I would be cutting off the ear over on that side, which I could do that if I wanted to. So the hair would come down here. So if that is the case, if I'm doing that, let's see where this is. Hair up here. Yeah, so I may want to do that actually, now that I think about it. And I'm looking at it just a little bit closer. Now I want to see if this is near the center, if the middle area of the nose is near the center. It is, but it's not quite. It's offset over to the right just a little bit. And let's check it one more time over here. Yeah, just a little. Okay. So if this is over here, got enough room over there. Yeah, so I can push that over, and I think I will do that. I'm going to erase that just a little bit. I don't have to worry about getting this clear back to the white of the paper, though. That just does not matter that much. It's going to work out fine if I don't do that. So I can come over here. That ear is somewhere in there. Edge of the face. Okay. Cheek. I'm looking at this outline of the shape of the face. And I'm I'm thinking about the border of the hair as well, or the hairline, as the case may be, over here on the left. Okay. So this is going to be over here somewhere, possibly. The weird thing about the beginning stages with any kind of portrait or anything you're drawing is that you have to be comfortable with not knowing everything at the beginning and being flexible. So it can change, and we're okay with the change. After a while, as we start to develop everything, then we're going to start to get more definite and more exact as we work through the process of laying out the drawing. Okay. Making sure we're still streaming. This thing has not been my friend this morning. Let's see here. Okay, looks like we're still online, so we're good. All right. But any questions as we're going along here, just ask away. Okay. So here we go. Let's see. I'm going to sharpen this just a little bit. So one of the nice things, though, about using sanded paper is you don't have to, you don't have to use a sharp pencil if you don't want to. So, thanks, Nick. Still going, huh? Hey, Ramona. Ramona is here. Ramona just completed a portrait recently. Beautiful skin tones on that portrait, too, Ramona. I guess you probably know that. You probably realize that. That's something that she's been doing very well lately, is just nailing those skin tones, which is a big deal. When you're starting out in portraits, figuring out skin tones sometimes is just one of the trickiest things, because it's easy to make skin look orange or make it look too red or something like that. And when you want to start adding like different colors in the skin, and that portrait that you just did, Ramona, of the child, had some beautiful skin tones in there. Okay, now let's do this. Let's move this just a little bit. I don't want these lines to start having a whole lot of meaning to me at the moment. I want them to be loose guides right now. So the neck's somewhere in there. Somewhere. We don't know yet where. Michael Landerman says he's very excited to see how this progresses. I have no idea why he would be so interested in this, but okay. No, anyway, this is Mike's child, so it's probably why he's interested in that. And thank you so much, Mike, for allowing me to photograph her. It's exciting. Okay, let's do this. Let's move this up this way. So this is coming down. There's a slight angle there. And then I want to remember that there's some kind of shadow right there. I don't care really where it is at the moment. And I want to think about this hair and the highlight right there. But if I look at this, overall, I'm going to have this horizontal area right here. So I want to kind of suggest it at the moment. It's right in there somewhere. Okay, and then we've got a bow up here. And then a little more shadow over here with the hair. All right. That ear is somewhere over there. I don't really care where it is at the moment. That edge of the face is over here as well. And this goes in like this. This comes out. And I want to think about that zygomatic over here. It's a little obscured on this side only because of the hair and the glasses and some of these other things. The rotation over here allows us to see less of the ear and that side of the face. And so we're going to see more of the side plane of the face over here with the zygomatic being shown just a little bit. But we have some of it shown to us over here once we look past that cheek over there. Okay. All right, so that needs to be moved up just a little bit. And you remember, this is a different... I have to remind myself, this is a different scale than what I've got with the reference. And so I don't want to start thinking about the same, the same scale with regard to the features, with the width of the overall head, or any of that. I want to think about the fact that this is a smaller surface that I'm on over here than the reference, than the printed reference. Okay, let's go right in here, down here. Okay, it may not be right on that mouth. That's okay. And then that nose is going to be up here somewhere. Okay. When you're doing a layout process and you're feeling it out, and you're just trying to figure out where things are placement-wise, then try not to look at details. Force yourself to only look at large shapes. Only look at the things that are bordering the details, and don't pay attention to details at all. And this is, some of these things, when you, if you're someone who takes portrait commissions, then this is the absolute worst thing to do, is to show a client this stage and to say, hey, I think it's coming along nicely. I've done that in the past, and it's like, oh, that doesn't look at all like my child. That doesn't look at all like my grandparent, or something like that. And you're better off just not talking to them about where you are in the process. Unless you're in a hurry and you're just tracing the outline first and then you're just filling in details. I say just filling in details. That takes the bulk of the time. And nothing wrong with doing that, but if you're doing that, then you can get a pretty decent looking initial line drawing. And if you do that, then it's, you know, it's something that's fine to show the client, and it'll look fine. It won't look scary to them. So okay. Now, I want to look at the things I'm trying to pay attention to and look at as I'm progressing through here is the nostrils. Look at the ala over on this outer edge, and in relationship, I want to think about where the tear ducts are, where the inner corner of the eyes are, and then follow that all the way down and look at the corner of the mouth. Sometimes what will happen is I'll be paying attention a whole lot to that vertical position, and I won't consider the horizontal position enough. And that's fine as long as I realize that I'm doing that later. You know, I'll look at that later and I'll think, okay, now I'm going to look at where that feature is in relationship to the other features horizontally. Okay, this has got to come over just a little bit more. And the eyes typically are a lot larger than we think on a child. So we have to remember that as well, that they're going to be larger than what we want to draw them most of the time. Okay. I don't know where the iris is really at all at this point, and that's fine. But I just want to try to suggest it's in there somewhere. Okay. Okay. If you guys have questions as we're moving through this, just type those in the chat.
I have to be very happy with my line drawing
and
any color. Otherwise I'm constantly adjusting and correcting.
And I can hear it. I get an audible message spoken to me of your comment that you make. So I usually am able to hear it and to understand it. Sometimes it's a little difficult. So, Nick, you're talking about you're happy with the line drawing before you start any color. You have to be happy with that. Yeah, definitely.
Where is your pencil?
Yeah, Melanie's asking what color the pencil is. I didn't look. It's let me see here.
Like Stephen Hawking.
Warm gray 2 is what it is. So Stephen said he sounds like Stephen Hawking. I better turn that down if you can hear it. There. Maybe that'll maybe that'll be better. Hopefully I can still hear you guys though. Yeah, it's a computer generated voice, so okay, let's see here. So everybody sounds like Stephen Hawking then, I guess. All right. Yeah, I definitely agree with you, Nick. It does make a big difference to be happy with the line drawing. Get that in place first, right? Before moving on to any color. I think that nose probably needs to come down. His eyes are in here somewhere. Okay. I hope I'm not the only one that mumbles to themselves when they draw. I try not to mumble whenever I'm doing this live, but sometimes I'm mumbling in my head, so I'm trying to just verbalize sometimes. So Ramona asks, how do you decide between, she's over on Facebook Live, how do you decide between using a pencil versus a col erase for your line drawing? Well, it's pretty easy for me if I'm doing it on sanded paper, because on sanded paper, I can go over everything with more layers, and it's going to cover up everything that I'm putting down. So I don't have to worry about being delicate and being slow and anything like that when I'm on sanded paper. When I'm on cotton paper, using that col erase affords me a great opportunity to get something down there and get it dark enough to be able to look at it, and then I can erase it. Because I only use a col erase for my line drawing, and I'm barely putting anything down when I'm using the col erase. When I switch over and I start employing more of that grisaille method, where I'm actually drawing the shadows first and I'm including a lot of the dark values, then I'm switching over to a colored pencil when I'm doing that. And I'm not using the col erase when I'm doing that, to be clear. Okay. You're welcome. You're very welcome, Ramona. Okay, so this nostril should be way out here. This comes out like this. This tapers in. This tapers out a little bit like that. This comes back in like this. And then I've got that little ridge right there. So okay. Sometimes I'll add a little bit of detail here and there, just to humor myself, just to make me feel better about certain areas, because I need some recognizability, so that I'm not having to squint my eyes constantly, that kind of thing, if I do that. All right. Now I want to start looking at these intervals, and I want to start thinking about how much space there is between things. And the nice thing about sanded paper is I can change all this if I need to. And if I decide, oh man, I'm wrong about that, I can change it later on, which is such a nice benefit. nice advantage, being able to do that. That needs to be tapered up just a little bit more. And the other cool thing about it is if I am just working on the layout process, then, and I'm not real exact on a certain thing, then the other thing that allows me to do is it allows me to be very flexible with every feature. And so I need to move around a lot and not stay, in one spot. Because if I stay in one spot, then I may start focusing and hyper-focusing on details. And yes, I will do that, actually, because that's kind of the thing that I do. I will start focusing too much on details. I just can't help that. That's just what I do when I draw, and when I'm doing this layout process, that's the wrong thing to do. That can get me in trouble, because then I'll start working on some area, some feature, and working on details when I should be focusing on a lot of other things instead, and getting the structure in place first. This needs to come down just a little bit, and then where is that shadow? Right in there somewhere, maybe right there. And it goes up this way. This is all in shadow. A lot of shadow right here. Down here. A lot of shadow right here in this glabella kind of area right there. A lot of shadow right up above the eyes as well. And that upper lip, got a lot of shadow right there. And more shadow right in here. And under the eyes. It's an area we often forget. It's easy to forget that area. There we go. Okay. We have to force ourselves not to look at the glasses at this point. And it's angled up. One of the clues that you may be starting to look at details too much and focusing on details is if you start pressing really hard. It also could mean, if you're further along in the drawing process, if you're pressing hard, that perhaps you are needing to switch colors, that the color may not be correct. You start pressing too hard or too light, but most often for me, it's too hard because I'm wanting that color to be a darker value than what it is. And I'm thinking, if I press harder, it's going to be darker on the paper. But no, of course, that isn't the case, but it makes us feel like that. Sort of subconsciously, we'll think that is what happens. So. So Nick is saying he knows it's early on, but thoughts on this paper versus UArt? Yeah, so I've done. I mean, this isn't the first portrait that I've done on this paper. I've done 2 others. Yes, and I can burnish on this paper once I get further along, Melanie, to answer your question. But Nick, I want to go back up there to that, and I prefer this paper over UArt right now, probably for most projects, only because there's a little more flexibility, I feel like, with this paper. There's something nice about that feel on UArt 800, and you can get through a project pretty quick. But like I've said before in other places, there's less dust that occurs on this paper, and so one could argue that, well, actually you're getting it done quicker on LuxArchival, and that probably is the case. It's just something in my mind, I think, that I'm thinking, I've got to fill in all this tooth, a 400 grit level of tooth. Wow, that's a lot of tooth to fill in. But I think I'm probably getting it done quicker because it holds the pigment so well. And so we can't forget that there's some very clear advantages to the paper. Okay, and now I think I'm ready to find my brushes here. I taught a workshop, Plaza Art, on Saturday, and so I'm hoping everything's still where I think I left it. Yeah, I found my brush. That was the main thing I was concerned about. Okay, found some kneaded erasers too. I might need those. That's why they're called kneaded eraser. Yes, corny jokes. They're abundant. Okay. Make sure that's clean enough. It's got a little bit of blue on it. That's all right. Okay. So now I can just sort of muddy all of this and push it around so that I don't see a whole lot of those definite lines. Actually, I think I'll use a larger brush. It'll work a little bit better, probably. There we go. If you felt like you're married to details prior to this point, then this will do it for you. This will get rid of that focus on details for sure, because you're just blurring everything and you're sort of suggesting where things are at this point. Which is good. It gets rid of the white of the paper and it gives you something to actually gives you some context, gives you something to look at, to go on. Yeah, this doesn't work. To Nick's point there, this doesn't work, or his question, I guess, quite the way it would on UArt paper, because I would be just spreading this out a lot, and this is keeping the line quite a bit, so it's interesting. The last portrait that I did on this paper, I used ink tints, and I thought about doing that on this one, but I didn't. But I used ink tints, and then I sprayed water all over it and just started kind of spreading it out, So Yes, Melanie, this is a scrubber. This one's actually called Scumbler. So this one is. It's a size 6 Scumbler. I like it. I like this one though really well for some smaller lines. Also, the Fix It brush number 2. It's a really good one. All right. So there we go. We've got something to work with a little bit. And I can use I want to look at, I can use a slightly darker pencil is what I was going to say. I can kind of look now at some of the structure just a little bit and think about some of the details. And I can start suggesting some of the shadow areas and then keep looking back at my reference and seeing if it is looking accurate or not at this point. So I think I will go with, I think I'm still going to go with the raw umber. And I think I'll start on these eyes. If everything else is oriented around the position of where those eyes are, then I should be fine. One of the biggest problems I feel like with doing portraits is getting in a hurry. When we start getting in a hurry, then we will start just forgetting, like good form and things like that, and forgetting to pay attention to small details. So have I got that mastered? No, of course not. It's a hard process. Still challenging to me. I think I'm getting better at it than I used to be, but it still is a challenge to slow down, to pay a little more attention, especially when I'm looking at angles. And I'm exaggerating sometimes those angles, especially early on in the process. Because if I can't see the nuances, if I can't see the small details of an angle, then the best thing to do is exaggerate it and make it a straight line if I need to. Okay.
Hi John. Hello all. Everyone please remember to hit the like button as this helps the channel and John a lot.
Oh, thank you, Nancy. So Nancy's over there on Facebook, or YouTube Live, rather. And she's reminding people to hit the like button. I appreciate that. Thank you. If you like it, that is. Okay. Somewhere in there. Not sure where that earlobe is, so I'm not going to be married to that line, but it's somewhere over there. Okay. Now at this point, if I wanted to measure these, and it's not a bad thing to do, is to measure and just to see what's going on. So you can do it with your pencil. Just take the tip of that pencil as your marker and then your finger and place it on your reference, take a look at it, make sure that you're oriented directly, in front of it at a good angle. You don't want to be skewing the angle that you're looking at it. But take a look at that. So I'm going to measure from the tear duct all the way to the corner of the eye on the opposite side. I'm going to go over to the other eye, and I'm looking at that, and I want to see if that is, very similar to the other eye. And then I want to measure the interval in between. And there's a greater distance in between these two eyes. Sometimes, that's not the case on every portrait. So I can measure this. I can say, okay, it's about the same distance for both eyes, but it's a greater distance between the two. So I've got to scoot that over. That would not be accurate if I place that one in the same spot. I also want to look at, hey Maria, thanks for joining us over there on YouTube Live. So I also want to look at that negative shape with the sclera, the interval between where the corners are and the edge of the iris. And if I can scoot my eye out further away from the base of the nose or the side plane of the nose, I'm better off because I can handle that with shading later on if I need to. If I need to scoot it over, it's an easier thing, at least for me. It seems to be an easier thing to scoot that over towards the nose than to push it further away. So I always want to think about that. So I'm going to push this down just a little bit right here. I'm going to push that eye just over just a little bit. And that's really all it takes at this point. There's a whole lot more to do, right, with this eye. So this is an early stage. I can move that if I need to, and I just did. So I can use this gray to kind of push that part over as well, just because I want it to look the same right now on both sides. I can put gray over there on that other side. Okay, so then I'm going to measure that again. And I want to also think about, what is the corner? Is the corner what I can see of the sclera, the white of the eye over there where it meets the bottom lid and the top eyelashes? Is that the corner? You want to determine that, and that's my corner usually. That's what I want to try to measure. So I've got nearly an eye and a quarter of an eye, something like that, and it'll become more clear as I progress through the piece what that distance is, that interval between the two eyes is. I don't need to worry a whole lot about where that is right now, but I need to be at least close at this point, and I need to think about how close that is. Okay, so if I did it right there, it would be somewhere over here. So that top angle will be somewhere right in there. Now I want to look at where that nose then is in relationship to the tear duct and the side of the nose. So I want to look at that. That's sticking out from there just a little bit. Now I'm not sure yet either about the interval between those two. So I might be able to just figure that out as I progress through the piece. Probably will, but I don't want to be real definite about hardly anything at this point, because that can spell out trouble later on if I start trying to add a whole bunch of details everywhere. Okay. This needs to be scooted out just a little bit. There we go. A little bit. All right. This needs to be scooted down just a little. I want to make sure I'm looking at it with the correct distance from both my reference and my drawing that I'm starting. You'll notice here this tear duct, the angle there, it comes down a lot further. It's nearly parallel to the bottom eyelid. And that's not always the case with every portrait that you may do. And so we always want to look at those little differences. Now this stays up here like that quite a bit for a while, and then it tapers down. That's the way I'm interpreting that. I still think I probably need a little more room out here. There we go. I always want to pay attention to the iris, the shape, not as much as shape right now, but the size of the iris a little bit matters a little bit. That helps with recognizability. I mean, believe it or not, you may already know this, but everyone's natural size of that opening is different. Some people naturally will have a smaller iris. I'm sorry, pupil. And if I decide, oh, I always like to make the pupil really large, then what will happen is it may not look like that person, you know. So I want to make sure that I make that pupil look like that particular subject. Oh, Sergi Man is here. All right, he's got jokes. All right, let's see. Go down like this. All right. Now again, I can use that gray pencil I was using and push that iris back over if I need to. I at least want to put that in there just a little bit. It's a very small corner right there. Okay. Yeah, that actually tapers up a little bit more like that. It's a quicker taper right in here. I'm talking about that angle. There we go. Yes, Sergio Man, asking if I usually start with an underpainting using darker colors. Yeah, most of the time I do. Even on traditional like cotton paper, I'm usually doing that. And I'm not, I'm not starting with something very light. And the real reason why I do that is I just can't see it if it's not very dark. I have to be able to see it, and so that's really the reason why I do that. Plus, it helps to establish the darkest value and the lightest value early on. I know where those dark values are then. And with a portrait, most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, I like to start with the eyes, if at all possible. I probably spend more time on the eyes than anywhere else. And so if I get those wrong early on, I still have time to go in there and, and correct it if I need to later on. So that's a great advantage to working on it early in the process. Okay. Not real sure where everything is at this point, and that's okay. Sergio Man says, what if something goes wrong? What if something goes wrong with that initial drawing that's real dark? The nice thing is, Sergio Man, is on sanded paper, I can change it. I can change everything, if something goes wrong. And that's one of the great things about sanded paper. If I'm doing that on cotton paper, then I'm going to spend a lot more time working on that initial line drawing and making sure that things look a lot better early on, that they're very accurate pretty early on in the drawing process. So, great question, though. Okay, what did I do with my air rocket? See, this is what happens when I have to pack up a lot of stuff and go somewhere. I don't know where my air rocket is. I really need it at this moment. I'll use this brush instead. Okay. Hope I'm not out of the frame. No, I guess I'm not. Okay, good. Okay. There we go. I want to make sure that this earlobe is underneath the bridge of the nose. And I might want to check that right now. Make sure that this placement is pretty accurate. nearly to that outer edge of the orbital area would be the interval between the inner corner of the eye and the bridge of the nose. And so that would be too far over here. That nose actually needs to go up just a little bit. Okay. That kneaded eraser just doesn't always grab everything. That's the reason why I like to use sticky putty. Okay. So this goes all the way to the edge, the orbital, all the way to the edge. It's nearly the same as right out there. I think it's more right in there. That's what it looks like. So that curve will happen right over there. Nostril and philtrum, or septum with the philtrum right under it. Something like that. Okay. Just move that up just a little bit. Now I still don't need to be married to that. I don't have to be. Later on, I may look at that again and say, still not quite right, you know. But at least there's something there now for me to gauge that just a little bit. Let me switch over to that lighter pencil. Getting all these dark lines in here. There we go. Okay. Let's see. So I have those smile lines from the cheek that I need to think about. They're right in there somewhere. And over here as well. There we go. So that earlobe could come down just a little bit. Should be fine. And I move that down. There we go. So I've got a lot of dark values right in there with those shadows. And that chin, looking at that interval right in here. And where does that edge come out, and where does the dimple area, it's really not a dimple in this case, but close. It's right over in that area right there. And where is that in relationship to the eye? Right in there. Okay. And that's in there somewhere as well. I want to think about this mouth being rounded. Okay. All right. Now, get rid of some of these lines that start trying to dictate to me where things are. And I don't want them to do that at this stage. Because I don't want to be married to a line right now. And push that down right there. I think that's probably more accurate than that line. Whoops. And I did that again. Okay, what did I do with my gray? Here's my gray pencil. Okay. That should tell me. No, scoot that over if I need to. I think I need to. It's in there somewhere. All right. That's in there somewhere. And let's put some of that in there. Again, I've got too dark a line right over here. I don't want that. I don't want it to say to me that that is the border. It might be the border, but I'm not sure yet. So I don't want it to be so dominant. And then that ear is somewhere right in there. Okay. There we go. All right. Make sure that I still have... Now I can go back in here with this same gray pencil. I think I will do that. I know there's dark areas over here. It's somewhere in there. That's pretty close. And sometimes it helps me to look at just the thumbnail image. Just to see how we're doing with everything. All right. And if you haven't tried that yet in your own artwork, that really is something that helps quite a bit. If you look at the thumbnail image, so just take a picture of it with your cell phone or something like that, and then start looking at it as a smaller image, and should help you to see some of the structural issues going on with it. Really does help. Does me anyway. Okay. Get this lighter pencil again. Keep getting that darker pencil in my hand. I don't know how that happens. Has that ever happened to you guys? I don't know. I'm keeping it too close by, too close to me. I need to put it further away so I don't grab it. There we go. That needs to be a rounded area right there. And then... So Michael is asking if I ever use a grid to help with proportions. I don't. I've used a grid before. I don't like a grid. I know some artists really love a grid, but I don't know. It just feels like a lot of work to me when I start using a grid. And it just, everything feels so disconnected when I'm using a grid, and I'd rather just kind of feel it and figure it out as I go. And I feel like once I started doing that, just started trying to look for inconsistencies and look for patterns and look at the horizontal and the vertical of where everything's lining up, then I started being able to understand the subject matter that I like the most, which is portraits. Started understanding that more, and it helped. I feel like it has helped when I started doing that. But I know there are a lot of artists that do use a grid system and they love it.
Your skill to do lay this out by sight is impressive.
Well, we're not done yet, Michael. You better withhold judgment for a little while. We'll see. All right. The beautiful thing, again, I feel like I say this all the time, but the beautiful thing about it is being able to use, the being able to use this sanded paper, and the sanded paper is just so forgiving, so it makes it nice because I can put light colors over dark colors and things like that, which I cannot do that with traditional papers. Hey Angel, how are you? I'm so glad you're here. It's awesome. So Angel is over on YouTube Live, and she says, got a question. Did you add a tilt to her head? Could be shadows or allowing space for shading, but I think her head looks tilted in the drawing. Yeah, it does look tilted in the drawing, and it's tilted in the reference also. It may look like there's more of a tilt at this point than what you see in the drawing, or in the reference rather, and that could be just some of the shading at this point. So because we're just kind of feeling things out right now, trying to figure out placement of features. You can almost use this gray pencil as kind of like an eraser a little bit, like just soften some of the darker lines, Yeah, well, you don't struggle with it alone, because I think every artist, Angel is saying she struggles with that. Every artist, I think, struggles with that, or everyone who is attempting to draw struggles with that, because what happens is our mind wants to straighten something. So if there is a slight tilt, we may even draw that in our drawing, but then constantly we're fighting against our mind wanting to make everything very symmetrical and very aligned. If there's a slight tilt or rotation in the head, we want to get rid of that. So we have to sort of approach it abstractly, and we have to think about it more as an abstract angle every time we're looking at features and trying to figure out, what the feature is doing. Then I feel like it's best to try and think of it in an abstract way. Okay. Still want to look at just that outer edge of the shape of the head, shape of the border of the head, because we're not drawing the entire head, are we, in this? We're drawing the border that we have. And the border has to do with some of the shadows where things are outside of our view, because hair in front is blocking areas in the back. And so that's what we want to look at. We want to look at the border of these things and figure out where all those things are. Okay. Yeah, this is not my typical brush. I don't don't know what I'm doing with this brush. It's a little bit odd for me to use that. Okay. All right. I want to move this over just a little bit over here. Push that down just a little. And raise that up. There we go. Because I'm using this Polychromos pencil, and I'm sort of putting this on here pretty lightly. A lot of times when I'm brushing it, then I'm brushing everything off. So that's okay. I just have to remember that that's going to happen when I use the brush. All right. Scoot that down just a little bit, and then it's one of the most wonky things about doing the layout is sometimes that alignment of where the tear ducts are can start to look really odd, because if they're not aligned, if this tear duct right there in the corner is not aligned with this one over on that side, because most of the time we're pretty symmetrical in that regard, then it can start looking pretty odd. And I'm not sure that it's aligned yet, and so I have to be okay with that a little bit as well in the beginning. That can happen, and it's fine. It's not the end of the world if that happens. Look at those shadow shapes again. I need to just put this dark Van Dyke brown way over here away from me for a while. There we go. Maybe I won't use it if I stick it way across the table here. Okay. If I can think more about some of these shadow shapes right in here. I should be better off. Okay. I have to remember that this line down here for me is the opening of the mouth. It's not the lip line. And then there's teeth inside there. So I have to remember that. There's not much upper lip. I shouldn't really have much of a line with that upper lip. So I want to obscure that just a little bit if I can. There we go. Okay. And there is some teeth in there, but I'm not sure about the placement of this yet. So it's fine if I need to change it. Okay. I want to look at that thumbnail image, a smaller image on my screen, just to kind of look and see where we are with everything. And make sure I have enough on the border. I'm telling you that I know many of you already know this, but that zygomatic, where that placement is over here on the side of the face, makes a huge difference. Okay, that needs to go down more. This tapers quicker. Okay. Starting to look funny because I don't have that shadow right in here. There we go. Okay. Move that around a little bit. See, we've been at this for a long time. You can see why there's a lot of benefit, especially to a portrait artist, to trace an outline, at least of some of the key areas, to get started on a portrait. That really speeds up the process. But I also like to show that you don't have to do that, that you can feel it out and figure it out. There's a lot of enjoyment out of just figuring out where all these features are. And it is something that is possible. And it's a lot of fun to do that. Okay. I think we're probably going to go ahead and stop here. And just want to thank you guys for joining today. And we will be picking this back up next week on YouTube Live and Facebook Live. So whichever platform you prefer, and we'll do that probably around 10 o'clock. This time when I went in there, I had to change a lot of my settings. I had to actually reconnect my settings over on YouTube, only because of that COPA update to YouTube. I had to go in there and make some changes there. Awesome. Thanks, Angel. Appreciate that. And thanks, guys, for watching. I really appreciate it. I guess maybe we went a little long. I'm not sure. I think I started a little bit after 10 o'clock today. So I can tell already there's some things I'm going to try to refrain from going in there and fixing some of these things, but I guess I won't. I'll try not to touch it between then. The mouth alignment. I really want to fix that mouth alignment now that I'm looking at it a little bit closer. That's the thing that really I want to fix right now. But I'm going to force myself. I'm going to try to force myself not to touch it until next week. So I'll put it up somewhere, and we'll do it together. How's that sound? All right. Thanks, guys. Really appreciate you being out here. This was a lot of fun, and I'll talk to you. And I'll see you next week when we continue this. So same time, same place. Have a great day. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.